Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 8th, 2020. Round of the Potus. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, I think I'm a little more even-keeled right now than most of America after Vice President Pence told them last night that he's going to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and 100,000 Americans are going to lose their health insurance, as well as they want to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and women won't have control of their bodies anymore. But I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, Charlton, who go out and do a due diligence every day in keeping America safe and healthy. Our nurses, our doctors, our first responders. You do such admirable work.
They really do admirable work, Big C. I want to say today, this show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be looking at us to a picture. Big C, I love pausing, but I will never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's important to me, Charlton, and it's not important to our administration. You think about Vice President Pence last night talking about abolishing the Affordable Care Act. Many veterans, survive on the Affordable Care Act as well as their military insurance, Charlton. But we lose some 24 veterans a day to suicide in this country. And our administration is so self-serving right now. They're not thinking about those people that have served so gracefully in our military. And we need to find a way, other than just our National Suicide Prevention Hotline number that we give out. As a country here in America, we need to think about our veterans, regardless of race, creed, or color.
Yep.
Our veterans have served this country. They have protected our shores. They've protected our sovereignty. And we are not protecting them in the way that they have protected us. Too many of them are committing suicide because the lackadaisical approach of our administration, not thinking about their sacrifices that they've made for this great country, calling them stupid, calling them losers. And, you can't do that to people who think about you first. And we think about our veterans every day.
Well, I really love saying that, Big C. And I want to say that we're probably the only two African Americans that pay homage to our U.S. military veterans every single show. And I challenge anyone to just step up and do the same. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid. Also, the home run leader, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country to help put people back to work. McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, and sports teams are doing it too. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some help there also. Big C, I think about what you said last night. I'm fortunate, but I do know of another person that I heard test positive at COVID-19. Someone that I know, and they're doing the quarantine, and hopefully everything will turn out fine. But I gotta say, when you talked about Mike Pence last night and how shameful he was, as a black man, I have a hard time stomaching any white man that disrespects a black woman. There was a time we had to put up with that. But I want to throw something out to you. The top medical journal, they rebuke Donald Trump's administration, and it says when it comes to the response to the largest public health crisis of our time, our current political leaders have demonstrated that they are dangerously incompetent, and we should not afford them another opportunity to allow more people to die. And that's by the New England Journal of Medicine. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, here's the vice president, the head of the coronavirus task force, had no plan for coronavirus in this secret. He had a chance to separate himself from Kamala Harris last night during this debate. All he had to do was lay out the administration's plan to move forward with this coronavirus challenge.
They don't have one.
He had no plan to stay forth. And then when he talked about abolishing the Affordable Care Act, and then he said, well, they have a plan. For 4 years, they've been writing these plans down on napkins and toilet paper.
Yeah.
And so you know where that goes.
Yeah.
And so the plan, it went down the toilet. I mean, it's just like, as I watched Mike Pence last night, and he had a friend show up during the debate. You know, when you sit up and you see flies, and you wonder what's the first thing that a fly will run to.
They run to
a whole lot of bullshit. That's what a fly will run to. And
Yeah.
he stood up there on Mike Pence's head for a minute. He was comfortable because he had smelled and heard so much of that activity coming from Pence that he said home.
Yeah. And what kind of man, when a fly is rubbing all around his head, doesn't even wipe it off because he's used to sitting in the BS himself fixing your nuts?
Well, like I told you, he's Trump's lapdog. What's your dog sick all the time? I mean, when you got a dog and you walk into a dog, got his leg up licking something, okay? And that was Mike Pence. And that fly felt comfortable just like Pence does around Trump.
Yeah. Flies feel comfortable around a lot of bullshivvy. And when you're the bullshivvy and the flies around you, they tend to go hand in hand. Sometimes the universe will give you a clue as to who's full of bullshivvy, Big C, if that makes sense to you. Also want to say, America, if you're really tired of bullshivvy, and I mean that, you got to flush it down the toilet. No person goes to the bathroom and does a number 2 and leaves the bullshivvy in the toilet. You got to get rid of it. But he wouldn't even flush the toilet. He would not get the fly off of his head because he's used to being around a cesspool. You got to vote. Text the word VOTE to 26797. That's VOTE to 26797. Register. Tell all your friends at Big C and the NFL that you got to get out and vote. And let's flush this bullshivvy down the toilet where it should have been, Big C. No one keeps bullshivvy in the toilet if they have any common sense. I do want to bring up something because words do matter. I wonder if Jerry Jones is asking people to pray for Kamala Harris the way he said pray for his sick friend Donald Trump. As a black man, I don't know if it bothered you, Big C, but I know the struggles of my grandparents, and they pushed through anyway, and my parents and how they pushed through anyway. But I'm not used to someone calling black people monsters. That's one of the things they said to slaves before they lynched them, that they were monsters, and they were ominous, and they were threatening. And to have an ugly white man and Donald Trump, maybe the ugliest person in the universe, call a beautiful black woman a monster. And his white friends in the Senate and Congress, and they're saying nothing to say, hey, you don't talk that way about women. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't understand after 4 years why you're still so naive to what this administration does and says. Donald Trump is challenged by every intelligent, powerful, strong black woman. And he does not know how to deal with them, so he has to go and try to berate them.
Yeah.
But those people who back on Trump feel the same way, Charlton, because they don't challenge him. They don't chastise him for making these negative comments towards these women. And so these are the way that they are. Like I keep telling you, you're either racist or you're anti-racist. So when you look at those 98 white senators, and they're complicit with what he is saying and allowing this to go forward, he's not going to say that about Amy Coney Barrett. He's not going to say about the judge that he's nominated.
No.
But he says it about every black woman in the media and in politics. When you think about the 4 junior female senators that he attacked, minority women of color, constantly. And this has gone on for 4 years. And the Senate says nothing about it. His base loves it because the racial rhetoric that Donald Trump spews is the voice of America. That's the base of the Constitution. I keep telling you the Constitution is a bad document. That's the reason why he keeps appointing justices and judges saying we want you to interpret the Constitution the way that it's written because it is racist.
Yeah, and when I hear it time and time again, and I still know people that like that, I just want to shout it down. I know a lot of our brethren won't do anything about it, especially, and I was talking to you about it yesterday, Big C, and I know you say, well, the bosses won't let them do it. You know, all life came from the African continent. According to Dr. Leakey and Gregor Mendel, that's been scientifically proven and irrefuted for over 100 years. So anytime an ugly person like Donald Trump, who always tries to darken his skin, have you ever noticed, as pale as he is, like a ghost, he always has the darkest skin possible, and does he understand that he does that, but he's trying to get darker? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you can do anything with chemicals, Charlton, and makeup, and that's what he does. But, you know, I'll give you the same statement that, you know, you just made. You're talking about the other people on the airway. When you've taken a job from an employer, and they giving you guidelines to stay employed with that company, are those the guidelines that you follow? Or do you just go rogue and say, no, I'm going to run this the way I want to run it?
Well,
that's what it's when you're an employee and they give you guidelines of employment and you accept that to get that paycheck, then that's the guidelines you follow. Not your personal thoughts. You follow the company line. Yeah,
I understand, but I disagree, because that's called what they have, those production meetings. That's what they're for, to go over strategy. Even John Lewis, when he was doing the speech, the March on Washington, he had a production meeting with some other pastors. They said, well, that's a little bit too strong, change it up. And they changed it up. And I would encourage people of all colors to approach your managers and ask them, can you at least denounce bigotry? That's my opinion. And the reason I say that, Big C, I know people love sports, but this is why so many things happen to people of color. We're so brainwashed by sports. The FBI, they stopped a white militia plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan. She's a Caucasian woman. She's going to be on CNN tonight, Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI arrested 13 Caucasians, Big C, hate crimes. And Potus has fueled this white terrorist propaganda. And this is a white woman saying that. They can't look at Big C Sports and say, oh, you guys talk about race too much. His propaganda led to them wanting to kidnap a governor of a state in the United States. Big C, your thoughts?
And he will not address that, nor will Bill Barr, the Attorney General, address that, Charlton, because it comes from the hatred that he spews. And I understand the production meetings and take a step back to the things that you were saying about the guys on air. And in that production meeting, they may make these statements.
Yeah.
But they're going to be told, if this is a statement you think that you need to make on air, you need to make sure that you have other arrangements after this show for employment. They tell them that, point blank, because it's in the contract that they signed to have the opportunity to be on air.
Well, I think the days of Archie Bunker, those production meetings are a lot different than the production meetings of the TV shows that happen today. Everything starts with a conversation. I do want to ask you on the debate last night, what you thought of Kamala Harris, the next vice president, and the soon-to-be erstwhile vice president, Mike Pence. I believe that she won. She was not too forceful, because women can't really be forceful, even though I think they should be. But like you're saying, there's a pushback on women, especially strong black women. But she tried to be very nice, and for him to still call her a monster, I would say stop being so damn nice to this bigot, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I thought both of them toed the line to a degree. They both skated around scenarios when they had an opportunity to put their thumb down on their opponent. I was really appalled by, when I saw the vice president not answering the question about the Affordable Care Act or Roe v. Wade. And then when they asked him about the Breonna Taylor situation in Kansas, in Kentucky, and he said he believes in law. And he felt that the law was followed. That's the easy way to say that, he's saying that there's no racism in America. And this is the thing that I'm appalled by when I look at a white politician to say that there's no racism in America because we have privilege and we never face it.
Yeah, they face it. They just look like the face of it, if that makes sense to you, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I want to ask you one more thing and get your thoughts on it. I know the polls say that Kamala won the debate, but people are going to win the debate when they go to the polls. POTUS did come out and say that he had good genes and that it was a miracle from God for helping him get drugs. But now POTUS, who's such a braggadocious bigot, he's begging Joe Biden to delay the debate because Trump has COVID-19 and he's sicker than letting people know. And he said he wants to delay the debate until he's healthy or physically and mentally able to conduct an in-person debate. And I'm telling you this, I don't want to be around anybody with COVID-19. They're supposed to self-isolate. He's not doing that. I think Joe Biden would be foolish to meet with him on the same stage. Maybe do it on teleconference. I think Kennedy did that back in the day. I believe also a teleconference meeting. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he came out later today, Charles, and said he's the healthiest person there is, that he's in perfect shape. He's in better shape now than what he was 40 years ago.
Wow.
And then his doctor followed that up with a note saying that he was COVID-free by Saturday. Now, he just had it on Monday.
Yeah.
But he's COVID-free by Saturday. This is the quickest anybody has gotten over COVID-19. Like I told you from the start, this COVID-19 with Donald Trump was a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
This was a ploy to get attention.
Yeah.
To try to distract from other things that had occurred.
Yep.
His taxes came out 2 weeks ago. He got his butt kicked in the debate.
Yeah.
So he had to come out and say, well, I was sick. All right? And now I'm healthy. In a couple days, you think about it, 4 days, he's with COVID. COVID has killed 213,000 Americans that he will not even address or say anything about. And that was appalling about Vice President Pence last night.
Yeah.
213,000 Americans have died. And they asked him about that. He said, well, we leave it up to the American people to make good judgments. You're supposed to be the director of this pandemic.
Yeah.
And controlling and showing Americans how to stay safe and stay alive. And you're saying that you're trusting Americans to make good judgments. Like they have access to the CDC and doctors every day and scientists. They don't. You do. And yet you have no words for the American public.
Well, you got to look at what Mike Pence was trying to say. He was also involved with pushing for the tobacco industry, Big C. And the tobacco industry, smoking, has over 480,000 smoking-related deaths every year in the United States and 41,000 secondhand. And Mike Pence was stopping for that.
One thing about this administration, Charles,
Yeah.
when you look at Donald Trump, the president, Mike Pence, the vice president, these two individuals have been responsible for more deaths than all administrations combined in the United States. You think about all the presidents in the history of the United States. Mike Pence and Donald Trump have been responsible for more deaths of American citizens than any administration in the history of the United States. With him stopping for the tobacco industry and COVID-19 amongst all these mass shootings and everything that has gone on, Donald Trump and Mike Pence have been the biggest mass murderers in American history.
Well, the good book says the enemy comes but to kill, steal, and destroy. And I think the good book knows what it's talking about. And speaking of the good book, Big C, I want to step into the world of the NFL. And hopefully there's no bullshitty on the sidelines. They don't allow, but I'm sure that Georgia Bulldog down on the sideline, they got bullshitty on that sideline. I hope they scoop it up. But the NFL, you know, we talk about COVID and how Donald Trump lied, and he's getting sick. You can tell he can barely speak. He whispers all the time, and he's on steroids to pop him up for a little bit. But think about this. Is this going to work? And it's time to really start asking. It's a quintessential question, Big C, about the NFL's attempt to play through the COVID pandemic after near flawless results during training camps, and a total of 7 player infections occurred from August 12th to September 19th. The first quarter of the 2020 season, Big C, is produced a crush of protocol violations and positive test results, as well as an ongoing team outbreak and the possibility of a second wave, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got to remember now, they threw out that first 77 positive test, and we can't have that.
Yeah.
Go do it again. All right? So that was the first wave of the NFL.
Bullshitty, Big C, bullshitty.
The NFL moved to the point of canceling and delaying games, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is inevitable, what's going to occur the rest of the season. We talked about it yesterday. The NFL does not have a shelf life as far as the season. It can extend it as far as they want to extend it, because they own everything.
Yeah.
They own the team, they own the players, they own the facilities, they own the stadium. So there's no other sport that can do that. So they can play any time of the year. We see NFL, whether it's 100 degrees or whether it's 0 degrees.
Thunder and lightning.
Play the game.
Yeah.
The NFL will extend this season all the way to March or April if they have to get these games in.
Yeah, and I, you know what, Big C, they're probably going to do it because that's just the way the NFL works, though. But I want to ask you because I feel kind of stupid. I kind of feel like I can't blame myself, but I love the game too. I love MMA too. I know guys get hurt, but they volunteer for it. But in your opinion, should the NFL offer players another opt-out window? Think about it. The league is telling some teams you can't play because of infections. Should the league offer the players another opt-out window? Circumstances have changed since the players were first given the chance to opt out, both on and off the field, Big C. It's only fair, in my opinion, to give the players a chance to hop off that ride that they've seen starting to hurt people already, Big C. Your thoughts?
And I think that's a realistic, viable solution, Charlton, that the NFL should come back once again. We played a quarter of the season and say, okay, this is an opportunity for you to opt out. We know that we can't keep this pandemic under wraps, and it's going to affect players and teams and families. So if you choose to opt out now, we'll give you that same opt-out that they had at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And that's only human, Charlton, to give that, to show that you have compassion as a league and you're not just authoritarian.
Yeah, but if compassion, will you think compassion would ever rule out over money? That's some bullshitty conversation that they'll say. That's bullshitty. We don't want any bullshitty conversation taking away our money, Big C. And I doubt if the NFL would capitulate, but we'll see. I just hope that they will. I don't want to see players get hurt, and the fact that a lot of them are African Americans, I just don't want to see that happen. It's amazing. I think Trump has over 27 people in the administration or the part of media that covered him that have tested positive for COVID-19. 27, and all of them are Caucasian. All of them. Isn't that something, Big C? I want to go back to the NFL. Good luck, Joe Flacco. You'll need it. You're not in Baltimore anymore. 8 years removed from his signature moment, the Super Bowl championship win over the 49ers. Flacco really inherits, one of the toughest jobs in the NFL. He's the quarterback of the New York Jets, which means he will preside over an offense that cannot run, they cannot score, and Big C, they cannot even protect the quarterback. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he can send a thank you card to that
bullshit me.
Who couldn't get anything done in that offense. But, here it is, Joe Flacco, with one last, swing at the fence, as an NFL quarterback. But you're taking a swing with the worst offense in the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
And we had talked about sitting down your boy Sam Darnold a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Saving, what's left of his mindset. Maybe you'll have some trade material come next year's draft.
Yeah.
Because he's not the future in New York.
Yeah.
But this could be iconic, for Joe Flacco. He had minimal success in Denver last year before suffering a neck injury.
Yep.
And now he's going to come to a team that can't block anybody. So who knows what part of his body may fall apart.
Yeah, and it's this sacrificial lambs, Big C. It's hard to feel bad for guys making several $1 million a year when people are in food lines because Potus will not sign a new stimulus bill to help people. It's amazing.
No, he will sign it after the vote. If you vote him back in office, then he'll give you some money.
No,
but if you don't vote him back in office, you don't suffer until January.
Well, he's bullshivy. He's not getting voted back in office, Big C. He can't even get into the own White House. Can you imagine? He can't get into the White House without some type of medical gear to go into the White House. Has that ever happened in this country, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, we've never had such a lackadaisical administration in the history of America. When Donald Trump talks about all his accomplishments in the White House, all he has done is written off the coattail of what Barack Obama had done as far as the economy up and going.
Yep.
That's all that was. He had the keys to the car. All he had to do was not start it up, just sit there. But he wanted to start up the car and change lanes, Charlton. And this has been the worst economy since the Depression.
Yep.
The most unemployment since the Depression, and the most deaths in the history of America under one administration.
And he talks about China lied about COVID-19 on January 28th. Donald Trump knew about COVID and how deadly it was, and he lied. So this is called the Trump virus.
This is the Trump virus.
It's the Trump virus.
China virus.
Yeah.
This is the Trump virus.
Yeah.
He needs to own up to where his screw up is.
Yeah. It's a Trump virus, Big C. Some people look you right in the eye and lie to you. NFL football, we are 16 starts into the Daniel Jones era after Sunday's Week 4 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. That's a full season worth of data and tape and information on the New York Giants quarterback. His 16 starts have produced hope, but hope doesn't pay the bills, Big C. But they don't seem to provide any sort of definitive answer on whether he'll be the next Eli Manning or even Dave Brown, Big C. The numbers say that 372 of 604 passing, 3,899 yards, 61% completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 20 fumbles, 12 of them lost, and 2 rushing touchdowns in 16 starts. That's pretty good aside from 28 total touchdowns compared to 29 turnovers in a 3-13 record for an NFL quarterback. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, and that puts you in the negative. You got to think about this, Charlton. He doesn't have any more wins than Dwayne Haskins had with the Washington Football Club.
No.
Yet Dwayne Haskins got set down. Daniel Jones still gets to run around freely and have an opportunity to develop in his career, where Dwayne Haskins has now been demoted to number 3. Not number 2, number 3.
Yeah.
This shows you the discrepancy in the treatment of black quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
And here it is in New York, the number 1 media market in the NFL. Neither team has a quarterback. They got 2 number 1 draft picks that are dismal. One a 3rd overall, one a number 6 overall.
Yeah.
Neither one of them put together a victory. Neither one of them knows how to lead their team. But you take the black guy that's down the Beltway in Washington and you bench him, and he has as many wins as these 2 clowns.
Isn't it something? But, I mean, they say, but you got to understand, Big C, when you think about it, Mike Pence said America does not have a problem with race. So you got to, even with that fly on his head, and he didn't even wipe it off. How sad do you got to be to the fly suck on your head? You do, your thoughts?
You know, I mean, I'm annoyed when I see him move around the window or anything, Charlton. But I had one sitting on not that I have hair, so I know what it felt like when it landed. But,
yeah.
You know, I feel a mosquito when he touches my scalp. But,
yeah.
You know, you got to know that the fly is in. You're going to hear him coming in. I mean, he's not like he's that quiet. He's not stealth. And so, know that he's there, and you got the shield up so you can see your reflection in that plexiglass shield, and it didn't bother you. So that's know what type of shivy that you live in.
You know, only God can see what we're going to see is true. There's no way to telegraph what I'm going to say. I was telling you about that commercial I saw with that dog licking on his owners. He had some peanut butter on his face on the sofa, and the dog was just licking him and licking him and licking him. I said, that's what Mike Pence does to Donald Trump. He just licks on him all the time. And then last night, God had a fly show up and just lick all over Mike Pence. And you couldn't... Only the universe can plan it out, Big C. It's all for a love of war. Before we give up on the Big C pause, I mean, I laughed so much last night that fly was just licking him. You ever have something lick on you and just lick on you and lick on you, Big C?
Well, you know, when I was young, you know, you could go through that from time to time, but I leave it off the show.
Oh, my goodness, God, it's funny. The NFL, the Vikings, Dalvin Cook, you think about him. I mean, he's a star running back. I really like him, Big C, out of Florida State, punishing tackles on the way to the NFL rushing lead. He leads the league on a losing team, rushed with 424 yards, 75 attempts. That's the 4th most, Big C. What's most impressive, in my opinion, is the way that he's earned those yards. He leads the NFL with 25 rushing first downs, 6 rushing touchdowns. He also has 269 rushing yards after contact, Big C, forced 21 missed tackles on runs, both of which are a league high, Big C. Your thoughts?
And this is a guy, when he's healthy, he's been one of the premier running backs in the NFL. You remember 2 years ago when he was leading the league and had a knee injury, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's knocked the Vikings out of any type of contention. Last year he was healthy. He was one of the top 5 rushers in the NFL. The Vikings end up making it to the NFC Championship game, led by Dalvin Cook, not your cousin at quarterback. But Dalvin Cook now is healthy once again. And I think that the Vikings are learning what the Cleveland Browns have learned.
Yeah.
We have an outstanding running back. And if we utilize this running back, we can make this also ran quarterback serviceable. And so as Dalvin Cook goes, the Minnesota Vikings go. You look at his last 2 games where he's amassed some 300 yards rushing on the ground.
Yeah.
The Vikings have back-to-back victories.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you, you know, we talk about players, even Alex Smith being moved up to second team, and guys that used to have their knees torn up several years ago, there was no way they could come back and even play in an NFL game, let alone lead the league in rushing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you couldn't, Charlton. I mean, but the advancement of medical technology and the use of cadavers now in replacing torn knee, ligaments, Charlton, where you're not repairing, you're replacing.
Yeah.
It's like putting new tires on the car. That ligament comes back even stronger and more secure once it attaches.
Yeah.
So medical technology has saved hundreds of careers in professional sports.
You know, before we get on the Big C pause, I was reading some journals about the doctors that have been working on steroids. Would you believe some of the steroid experiments that they're using to help President Trump get better? It came from fetal tissues. Okay? I know women should have a right to choose what happens to their body. I'm a man. I can't tell a woman what to do. But what they hate so much, and they want to overturn Roe v. Wade, some of the tissues that were used from fetal tissues, Big C, was used to help him get better. Now they're pro-abortion. We'll take the Big C pause. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I just want to follow up on the NFL rushing leaders so far. Of course, we got Dalvin Cook with Minnesota through 4 games, and he's leading the pack right now. But behind him, you have Jones out of Green Bay, Aaron Jones, 374 yards. Nick Chubb out of Cleveland, 335. Derrick Henry out of Tennessee, 319. And you have Mixon out of Cincinnati, 315. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 304 yards for Cincinnati. And then Jacobs for Las Vegas Raiders at 300 yards. And anybody under 300 yards, they'll have to wait till next week to get up on the stats, Big C. But I think with so many players that are running the football, Big C, helping their teams win, no matter how good and needy these running backs are, they're still going to be second fiddle to the quarterbacks. I want to take you someplace to the world of Houston. You know, they just got rid of their coach, and I hate the fact that African Americans don't get the same opportunity. But the Houston Texans Executive Vice President of Football Operations, his name is Jack Easterby, Big C. He'll handle general manager duties for the rest of the season. Team owner Carl McNair, he said today that Romeo Crennel, who has served as this team's associate head coach, was named the interim head coach today. And he was solid when he was with the New England Patriots. I know he had some other opportunities in the league. I would love for them to just build around him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he had been a previous head coach with the Cleveland Browns, which everybody has been
has
there, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, you know, he came onto the O'Brien staff because they coached together there at New England. Romeo Crennel is a defensive coach. And so hopefully he can help get things turned around. He can turn over the reins offensively to somebody who is more open and expansive on play calling than what O'Brien was.
Yeah, I hope he gets the chance. I mean, all we ask for is an opportunity. I hate the fact that in today's world where black women are called monsters by old, ugly white men. I mean, Donald Trump has to be the ugliest man in the world. He's so embarrassed of how ugly he looks. He won't even use his natural skin color. He's always orange. Whatever they put on him to hide his whiteness that he's afraid of and embarrassed of, it's always orange. How dare he call a beautiful black woman ugly? What an ugly man. NFL sources familiar with the joint NFL and NFLPA investigation into the recent COVID-19 outbreak that's caused by Potus, the Potus virus, within the Tennessee Titans said the franchise is expected to face some form of penalties stemming from safety protocol violations. The whole league plan is a safety protocol violation, Big C, but is already uncovered during an ongoing review. One source said the league's sanctions against the Titans were likely not a matter of it, but when. Not a matter of if, but when, and how severe. And that the NFL and the union jointly believe that franchise violated COVID-19, the Trump virus, safety protocols, and during the team's 4-week emergency bye, which ultimately postponed games against Pittsburgh. But this Trump virus, he couldn't even escape it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the NFL has laid out protocols to start with. They knew that they're going to have to jump over some hurdles to get through the season.
Yeah.
But when you have teams that just abandon their protocol, and these protocols are not just set up by the league, but by the NFLPA also, Charlton, and these are measures to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
But when you got players that want to be rogue and do what they want to do, this is what's going to happen. This is why the NFL will have an extended season. But when they talk about finding somebody, when you have to understand that the NFL makes $30 million per game that's televised on television,
yeah,
they will slap you in the butt.
Yeah.
when you break out.
Well, I wanna take the side of some of these players. Whenever I take medicine, I read the label. Every medicine has a warning label. Now, if Mike Pence, soon to be ex-Vice President Mike Pence, if he's the head of the coronavirus task force and his boss is sick, and during there everybody in the White House is sick, if the NFL is following Mike Pence's protocol, how can you punish players when the Trump virus has gotten even Trump and his administration sick? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the reason why you have player reps. They come back to the team. They explain everything that was laid out by the league and the Players Association. The league also sends an individual in to talk to you. But we have these cavalier players. Think about the Seattle Seahawks rookie that got cut sneaking a woman in the training camp. Think about your buddy down in the NBA bubble, Lou Williams, who had to go get some chicken wings.
That was a good chicken wings, though.
Want to be breakers, these things will happen.
Yeah.
And so you have to come back on the team harshly.
Yeah, but I still think most of these NFL owners that want to punish players in the league, they voted for Trump or they gave him money. I mean, at some point in time, they followed the head chief in charge.
Who is going to hurt is the owner, Charlton. That's who they're coming after. Because it's going to cost that owner money. It's going to cost him draft picks. That's who they're going after. They're not going after the players individually. They're going after the organization. The organization name is the owner.
Yeah, well, I still think they're following Mike Pence's plan from the Trump virus. And if the guy in charge is sick, why you blame the players? This is my opinion. But I want to ask you something, because you brought up the Seattle Seahawks. You know, Lou Williams, I understand. If you've ever had some garlic, spicy chicken wings, you might leave the bubble too, if that makes sense to you, Big C. And I'm sure there were no flies in the chicken wing place licking on them like Mike Pence was being licked on, if that makes sense to you. But I want to bring it to Seattle. Would you believe? I remember being in the Kingdom in Seattle, the first dome they built up there, the only dome actually for the football team, and there was a 49er game being played up there. It was when Seattle was in the AFC, and they tore that place down, the Kingdom. They had pieces falling out of the ceiling, Big C, and they built this beautiful stadium that they have now. They've changed the names of it a couple of times, but the Seattle Seahawks, they seek their first 5-0 start in team history, Big C. Think about that. They're going to be hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Throughout its franchise history, this Seattle Seahawks, they've never started a season 5-0. Not in the years that Seattle was a contender in the old AFC West when they were playing with the Raiders and the Broncos and the Chiefs and Chargers. Not after it moved into the NFC. Not even the year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, the only Super Bowl. And then again, the Seahawks have never had a quarterback playing as well as Russell Houdini Wilson, who's leading Seattle to a 4-0 record heading into Sunday's matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. Isn't that amazing, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, sometimes those northern lights line up, and that's what it's been this year for the Seattle Seahawks. You know, you talk about a hot quarterback.
He's amazing.
Russell Wilson was a very solid run game that he doesn't have to carry for once in his career. That's allowed him to just play the position of quarterback, and he's been very successful in doing that. You know, the Seattle defense, they've had a lot of injuries. They've been bringing players in off of buses to play on that side of the football. But Russell Wilson has kept his poise. He has his team undefeated. He has your cousin coming to town from Minnesota this weekend with the league's leading rusher in Dalvin Cook. But if that Seattle defense can bow up a little bit and slow down Cook, they could end up 5-0 on the season for the first time in franchise history.
I really think, and this is just my opinion, I think the reason that Russell Wilson's having so much success, if you've noticed how many burgers there are, the Big C burger, it tastes ooh-yeah good. It really is a tasty burger, Big C. You get it with exotic meats. I even had a little bit of seagull on it too, so that might be helping Russell Houdini Wilson do his thing. I really appreciate how great he plays as a player, and he's never been in any kind of scandal, as far as I understand, Big C, so really appreciate that. And speaking of football players and getting off to a hot start, we have a game tonight, the NFL Super Bowl Foles, Tom Brady and Nick Foles. They meet again as the Buccaneers face the Bears. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady's team when he was with the Eagles in the Super Bowl back in the day. And it won't have the same feel as Super Bowl 52, but knowing how ridiculously high and low Foles' career has been, he's been up and down all over the charts. Another great outing, really cannot be ruled out in my opinion. At this time, Brady and Foles, they engineered offenses that put up the most combined points in any NFL game ever in the regular season or the playoffs. I don't think we'll get that again tonight, but it should be a good game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the anticipation that you look for in an NFL game, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, both of these quarterbacks are capable of putting up big numbers. Nick Foles did not have a great game in his first start of the season last week for the Chicago Bears. For Tom Brady, on the flip side, had his best day as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, throwing 6 touchdown passes in the game, passing for 379 yards.
Yeah.
So, when you compare these two quarterbacks, they're both polar opposites from last week. But this is one of those games, Charlton, that both teams are coming in at 3-1, and it's a decisive game. If Tampa can win this game, they're just going to run away with the NFC South. The Bears need this game to stay in touch in NFC Central with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, game's already underway. Kickoff was 8:20 p.m. East Coast time at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. It's on Fox and on Fox Sports, and a lot of people. You can also stream that on Fubo TV. I understand how coming into this game, the Tampa has a lot of players that are banged up. The line opened at the Buccaneers were 6, Big C, and I think it's down to now. It's like 3 points before kickoff. But give me your feeling on two things I want to ask you. Isn't it amazing? Since these two quarterbacks set the league on fire, and when they scored so many points in that Super Bowl, it's amazing that they're on different teams now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the face of the NFL. You got to realize Nick Foles was the backup.
Yeah.
He just happened to be playing for your buddy Carson Wentz, who was hurt.
Yeah.
And he lifted Philly to their first championship ever. Tom Brady, the clock ran out on him in New England. 20 years anywhere, any business is a long, long time.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to move on and have some freedom to see if he could do it on his own. And he did. And Bill Belichick wouldn't get all the credit for it, so he went on to Tampa.
Isn't that amazing? Not that anyone's keeping score. And I know that, not that anyone's keeping score, but Tom Brady has only 1 loss on the season so far. And then Belichick has 2 losses on the season. But Belichick has played a tougher schedule than Tampa so far. But isn't that amazing? You ever think about that? Your thoughts?
Well, no, you don't compare these types of scenarios. When you look at what New England is going through, New England had to replace 14 starters.
Yeah.
Tampa did not have to replace 14 starters.
Yeah.
So that's a huge disadvantage for any team. But to be at 500, you had to replace 14 starters. Not only that, you didn't have your starting quarterback. Not that you would have beaten Kansas City, but you didn't have your starting quarterback in that game either.
Yeah, and just give me one more feeling on Nick Foles and why it's been so difficult for an NFL. I don't know if he was the MVP, but I believe he was in that Super Bowl, and he's just been bounced around. I think the only Super Bowl MVP that's had it worse than him was Doug Williams, who threw 5 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, and the Washington football team now beat the Denver Broncos, and he never saw another snap. Why do you think that's the case? He got hurt down in Jacksonville, but why is he bouncing around as a second team player? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he wanted to get out of Philadelphia and he bought out his contract in Philadelphia. He wanted to go someplace to have an opportunity to be a starter. Unfortunately, he got hurt on the first drive of the game in Jacksonville, opening game of the season. And so that led to his ouster and going to Chicago. He ended up in Chicago because he was familiar with Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
And they knew that they were not high on Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
So he felt that this was his best opportunity with the familiarity of an offense and a head coach to prolong his career.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk so much about players and longevity. You got Alex Smith coming back. I don't want to say I can control what anybody does. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I just hope Alex Smith can stay healthy. I still remember what happened to Joe Theismann in that same uniform, Big C. But Foxborough, Massachusetts, we talk about Bill Belichick having 2 losses right now in the season. But again, his second loss came without his starter, Cam Newton. He just wants to keep his players healthy. I know the NFL, the way things are looking now, they've already moved a couple of games back from the weekend, Big C. But out of Foxborough, Massachusetts, New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick said today that his team's facility will remain closed through at least the rest of the day, as his health and safety of the team is first and second. I'm just going to add some thoughts. Bob Kraft is a friend of Donald Trump. Sometimes the universe will show us things. The universe may show us things. A fly landed on the head of Mike Pence. It was just licking him and licking him and licking him. And Mike Pence was so comfortable having a fly land on his head, he didn't even shuck him off. But isn't it ironic that Bob Kraft, who got off for his, personal issues, that Bob Kraft and his friend Donald Trump, neither one of them can go to their own house without some type of protective gear? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the COVID-19 doesn't discriminate, Charlton. It's going to go after everybody. No one's immune to it, regardless of how big your mouth or your pocket is. When it wants to get a hold to you, it will get a hold to you. I respect Bill Belichick for trying to keep his players safe there in New England.
Yeah.
I mean, that's out of the control of the owner. I mean, he's an owner, but he's not around the facility day to day. He's not going to be in the locker room with those players because of his age and pre-existing conditions they were having. So it's left up to the administration of the team to make sure they keep everybody healthy.
And isn't it ironic? You have the Stephon Gilmore, who's probably their best defensive player, Cam Newton, arguably their best offensive player. Both of those players are on a COVID-19 protocol, and it's amazing because it can touch anybody, but it's just ironic to me, and maybe it's something that I can't understand, and maybe you can't either. It seems like when we hear about athletes testing positive for COVID-19, the majority has been African-American athletes, whether it's basketball or whether it's the NFL. When it's outside of the sports arena, it's been in the sports, the administration with Trump, it's been mostly white. I don't know if that makes any sense, but what conclusion can you draw? Why is it that in the sports arena you have African-Americans, but when it comes to mainstream, it seems to be mostly Caucasian? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to look at the percentage of participation where these people are catching COVID-19. When you look at the majority of professional athletes, they are African-Americans. When you look at the White House, everybody in there is white.
Yeah.
So you can't have no choice but to get white people sick in the White House with COVID-19. When you look at an athletic arena, you look at the percentage of African-American players. That's the percentage as we look at COVID-19 in society that's going to get sick. I know of some former white athletes that have contacted COVID-19.
Yeah.
So like I said, it doesn't discriminate. It will get you. It's just a matter of when and where.
So at what point in time, you can only fine people so much money, Big C? Because when you got $1 million in the bank or $50 million, or if you're a billionaire with several million, what's the fine of $1 million? It's a write-off anyway. So fining can't just be the way that we're going to get our way through this. There has to be, in my opinion, threaten people with the loss of a draft pick, and maybe even that they can be barred from participating in the playoffs should they make it there. That wouldn't be the first time it's happened where teams were barred from participating in competition. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the draft picks are already on the board. That's one of the things that you'll take away from a team. Eliminating a team from a playoff, that will never happen in the NFL, Charlton, because there's too much money on the table, and it's the players that are playing. And you're punishing the players for the negligence of owners and managers. So you can't do that. Collective bargaining will never allow that you can hold a team out of the playoffs if they qualify. But you can take away draft picks. You can fine owners.
Yeah.
Owners don't like to be fined regardless of how much money they have in the bank. Trust me. Nobody wants to be given that check for $1 to $2 million because of some situations that occurred, and they weren't even there. But you definitely don't want to lose a high-round draft pick because that's the foundation of your franchise's future.
Yeah. So the Tennessee Titans, I guess they're a cluster. And why, if you are on a team and you're told you're going to fly into Tennessee, you're going to fly in and you're going to play a game against the Tennessee Titans, I believe, as far as what they reported, the Titans had the biggest cluster of outbreak. I know Bill Belichick's doing what he can to be a great spokesperson for the New England Patriots. But as an athlete, and the NFL lied about concussion, the CTE issue, they had 77 quote-unquote false positives, and they said, oh, those were all false positives. Would you as a player, and you talked about being able to opt out earlier, would you as a player be willing to go down to Tennessee, like the Buffalo Bills are preparing for their Sunday game against Tennessee? I believe it's already been pushed back to a Monday or Tuesday. Would you go? Big C, your thoughts?
These players are going to go, Charlton. They want the paycheck. They want an opportunity to keep their season going, staying undefeated. So these players don't have any reserve about going down and playing. I mean, I think they still would have the opportunity to opt out if they want. The league is going to put in every safety measure that they can, trying to protect these players, Charlton. But you're not going to be able to protect the players 100% during this NFL season, regardless of what stance you take.
Well, Tennessee 3-0. They had 21 positive tests since September 29. Now 13 players are on the COVID-19 reserve list, including 4 starters and a long snapper. That puts the game with the Buffalo Bills at 4-0 at risk of being at least postponed. And the Bills are scheduled to host the Kansas City Chiefs October 15. The NFL, your favorite player right now, I would think he's maybe only second to Moonshine, if that makes sense to you, Big C, Patrick Mahomes. He just had the thing with the Patriots, and hopefully that they'll keep him safe because he's the face of the NFL. At what point in time does Andy Reid and the Hunt family say, after Buffalo gets together with Tennessee, I'm not flying our crown jewel into Buffalo and playing the game? That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, not really, Charlton, because as long as you pass the COVID-19 test, you test negative, you're going to play. You're not at risk. I mean, everybody's at risk every day walking up and down the street in America. It's about what you do to protect yourself at all times, not just at practice, but once you leave practice.
Yeah.
I think that's where the players are contacting it at, is once they leave the facility. You got 80 different people going 80 different directions and then coming back into one house. You can't all be clean. That's the problem right there. Until you lock them down, you're still going to have COVID-19 all season long.
Yeah, and I hear that flies are really good at detecting if you have COVID. Mike Pence had that red eye. I thought he was getting ready for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie last night. I'm telling you, I hope that Kamala Harris didn't get too close to him. And sometimes you don't learn your lesson. Kamala Harris, her husband, came up to the stage. He wore a mask. And Mike Pence's wife, who came up to the stage, she did not wear a mask. Have they not learned anything, Big C? Your thoughts?
Charlton, they know exactly the risks that exist with COVID-19, but they fail to understand. But they think if they wear a mask, it shows weakness, that the virus has won, and the administration has lied. This is the reason why this administration is not advocate for masks, because they have not forced it among the American people. But the American people don't have access to the medical care that the administration does.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not understanding. That 3 days at Walter Reed cost the American taxpayer $100,000 to treat Donald Trump with the medicines and everything that they did, the therapeutics.
Yeah.
$100,000. And he told, when he walked out, he said, you can get the same treatment and you can get it for free. So,
yeah.
I think we got like 338 million Americans.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Left alive. And he's going to give $100,000 medical treatment to 338 million Americans.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yet he won't sign a stimulus bill for them to get $600 a week.
Or
So
even
you tell me who the damn fool is.
Or even $750. I hear that flies are also being trained to suck the COVID out of your brain, and maybe that's why Mike Pence didn't test that fly last night. Speaking of another annoyance, the Las Vegas Raiders, they prepare to enter the House of Horrors at Arrowhead Stadium, Big C. And you think about Derek Carr, the last 6 times he's taken the Raiders into Kansas City to face the Chiefs, they come out on the short end every time. And especially with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be difficult. But even, again, with that COVID protocol, the Raiders had 2 people test positive in their organization for COVID-19. And now they're going to be going into Kansas City, where the New England Patriots just left guys had COVID-19. At some point in time, do you take your star athlete and say, we're going to sit him on the shelf just until we get things figured out, or is it too important to play this game? Your thoughts?
Let me simplify it for you, Charlton. The games will go on with all the players in the lineup that don't test positive for COVID-19. There's no star in the NFL that's bigger than any other star. Everybody has stars on their team that they need to win.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes just has to be the face of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's all that is. Every team is out there vying for that same Holy Grail, the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah.
And you need your best players out there to play. If the NFL wanted to put the season on pause, they would put the season on pause, but they're not. So the players that are on the active roster are going to play. You don't have the privilege in the NFL to sit down a player. That's where you will get a fine and lose a draft pick. That's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
Unless that player's on the injury report all week long, he's going to play.
Yeah.
That's what you sign up for.
Yeah.
So these players are going to play regardless of who has what, just like the game going on in Tennessee. Those Buffalo Bills are going to come in there and play, regardless of those 29 people on the Titan staff that have tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, and we wish them all the best. I also want to take a little pause. I want to say thank you to our new friend. Her name is Ife Nueze from Africa in Nigeria, Big C. She loves Big C sports, and I told her I'd give her a shout out today. And she's from the motherland, Big C, from Nigeria in Africa, and she apologizes that Donald Trump has turned America into an S-hole country. That makes sense to your thoughts.
Well, I mean, this country is what it is. I mean, the people who elected him and voted for him and backed him love this country the way that it is, Charlton. They like it being an S-hole country.
Yeah.
Because, as I tell you, Donald Trump is a distraction.
Yeah.
And people keep focusing on Donald Trump. It is the United States Senate that has allowed Donald Trump to be what it is. When they had an opportunity, they had him dead to rights.
Yeah.
And they still did not act on it. They could have done it, Charlton, and they did not do it. They gave him a pass because they were in acceptance of what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so they did not get rid of him when they had an opportunity to kick him out of the White House. They said, no, we like this because he represents us, and we don't have to say anything. He's our mouthpiece.
Yeah, he still got to get voted out, Big C. I do understand what you stand, and people got to vote him out on November 3rd or even before sending your ballot. I want to ask you this because we talk about sports and politics all the time, and everybody with a brain does. If you're a dumb person, I don't expect you to stay up with us. I understand that. Sports and politics, Big C. Man, Milwaukee has been a turbulent city, and Wisconsin's been a turbulent state. Milwaukee scraps early voting plans at the Bucks and Brewers stadiums, election officials said on Tuesday. Their plans were scrapped, Big C, to use the Milwaukee Bucks and Brewers stadium as early voting sites in the presidential battleground state of Wisconsin. They're citing fear that the ballot could be legally challenged. That makes no sense in the world, Big C. Your thoughts?
Guy's name is Rick Scott. Remember that. Rick Scott. He's the governor of Wisconsin. AKA, he's a Republican. So he scrapped it, okay? This is a Donald Trump flunky who scrapped it. And this is the reason why. Not that the votes can be challenged, Charlton, but when you know that he's trailing in that state and you're about to lose control, then you do everything that you can to obstruct the vote.
Yeah, and I know that's so true, and I hope that Giannis is listening. Because Giannis, when you come to California and play for the Golden State Warriors next year, they have all the arenas open in California because they want equality and they want people to have the right to vote. Listen to your governor as he's pushing you out. He's giving, sometimes the universe will speak loud like a thunderstorm when it's trying to get your attention. Giannis, if you just heard that, they want you there as a big buck to run around and run up and down the court and score baskets. But you have a governor that says he doesn't even want you voting or people who look like you, and I hope that makes sense to you. Big C, final story. I know tomorrow the Lakers are looking to crown championship number 17. That's incredible, to tie the Boston Celtics. And they felt they should have been ahead of Boston, but the officials sometimes, that leprechaun doesn't always play fair. That's their opinion. But the NBA in the bubble, Game 5, Miami versus LA, Miami versus LA. Would you believe this? Pat Riley has a chance to not only have championships with the Lakers, but have championships with LeBron James, and then also to be beaten by a team that has LeBron James. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is the history of basketball. When players move now, no one stays with a franchise forever. LeBron James has moved around originally.
Kobe did.
Championship down in Miami.
Yeah.
Went back to Cleveland, got a championship, then he came to the Lakers to do the same thing. And he's about to accomplish that feat for a third time.
Well, the thing, in my opinion, the NBA doesn't want games to be over. They don't want the season to be over Friday. They want to compete against the NFL over the weekend. That's just my opinion. I hope the Lakers win because when it gets hot, you want to jump on the lake. I know everybody in the world, except for the bookies in Las Vegas, are pulling for the Lakers to win. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I don't know anybody that wants to lose money, especially when they can have your eye over the weekend too. Just an opinion, but I'm really pulling for the Lakers and LeBron James and everybody else. For all the men and women that are going to vote in this election, white women too. You got a governor of Michigan being threatened by white militia that Mike Pence and Donald Trump says is not a problem. They just said stand by. And he's calling a black woman a monster. Remember that as you look your daughters in the eye and tell them what kind of man you want them to bring home. Someone that calls you a monster and someone that incites militias to attack you and kidnap you, you have a chance to make a vote, and I hope you'll vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris November 3rd. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, the Lakers will win Game 5 of the NBA Championship Series and close out the East, because Adam Silver nor does the NBA want to face the lowest championship game rating in NBA history in modern times. But back again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. You're always on time, and you're always the 18th.
And always, always stand up for women. You can stand up for women every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help. And you had a president of the United States call another woman a monster. Remember that when you go to the ballot. Women are not monsters. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, follow Big C Sports. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.